All right, I'll call the meeting to order. All right,
Roll call.
was this properly noticed?
Yes.
All right.
The meeting has been posted according to open meeting laws.
Okay, roll call, please.
President Johnson. Trustee Alexander. Trustee Nugent. Trustee Renucci.
Here.
Trustee Smalley. And Trustee Wisniewski. Thank you.
I'm used to my name being later in that list. You need to pay attention more. All right, so I'm going to take, we're going to do, well, I guess we'll do citizen participation. Per Village Resolution 2017-01, anyone wishing to address the village board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject can be anything, whether on the agenda or not. The village board should not engage in a discussion regarding comments because it was not part of the publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of the citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they are participating in a public hearing or if specifically allowed by a majority vote of the village board due to involvement in an agenda item. Anybody would like to talk, speak? Uh-oh.
Can he do that?
It is a public meeting and he is a citizen, but we're going to put him on.
Hit the button.
Here we go.
Mark.
Scott Seeger, 2919 Autumn Lane. That feels very weird. So at my last opportunity to be a part of this group on April 17th, 2023, I had an opportunity to thank everybody that's in this circle, except for one. You were in a warm area while we were all sweating this meeting up here. So thank you, Jason Smalley, for your contribution to this community. Thank you for saying yes when I asked you to be a part of this and run for that position. You have been an incredible asset and taking on some pretty difficult tasks, including with the EMS. And you're doing incredible work here for this community, and thank you very much. I wanted to make sure I did that because I didn't get to do that on the 17th. So thank you.
Not even a minute. That's all you get is a minute. Would anybody else like to speak during citizen participation? Going once, going twice? Okay, we'll close citizen participation. I'm going to take agenda item miscellaneous business 1 out of order, assuming no objection. Consideration of recommendation by village president to appoint Jim Holm to fill the vacant trustee seat until the next spring election through April 16th, 2024. So that is the item that we would like to recommend, and Jim is here with us, and many of you know Jim and has served previously on this board, and very happy that he has agreed to volunteer yet again.
Do you want a motion?
Need a motion and a second.
I will make a motion that we accept Mr. Jim Holm to fill the vacant trustee seat until the next spring election.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Come on down.
Come on down. You're the next contestant on.
Don't say we didn't warn you.
Okay. Now that that important item is done, consent agenda, 1 motion and a second will approve all of the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately. And then I would note in the appointments, which is item number 2, the recommendation would be that Jim would be at the airport, but as Jim is the citizen representative to the CDA, we will have to identify someone else, so that'll still remain open. That's the one change there, which is why I wanted to do Jim first. So,
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
with that change.
Well, of course, yes.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion?
I have a question. And and maybe Eileen or Lori could answer this. It's just a matter I was thinking about before. I know that when the people apply for an operator's license for the serving of alcohol, there's usually two names there. Is it like a tavern where you have a licensed bartender or licensed owner on premises? You can have other people work as a bartender without a bartender's license? In other words, can other people serve at these functions without having the approval?
Are you talking about the special events?
Yeah, that's what we
Yes.
just approved.
That is exactly what happens.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we will, move on to miscellaneous business, item number 2, consideration of intergovernmental agreement with Walworth County for emergency communications radio system site. So Eileen has a memo here. Any questions for her, or I guess for Chief?
No, I'd move to approve the IGA with Walworth County for emergency communications radio system site.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 3, presentation of 2022 audit report by Johnson Block and Company. Item A, board summary. B, draft financial report draft. And C, draft required audit communications to village board. Are they on Teams? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me fine?
We can.
Okay, sorry. I did plan to attend in person, but I've been fighting a cold, so I thought I would be best against it. So I'll give a brief overview. And basically what I would want to talk about in specifics is just the audit overview that I've got in front of you. The packets that you've got, there's a draft audit report with all the financials associated with it. That's over 80 pages. The content of it, there's an independent auditor's report, and really that is what we do is we give an opinion to determine whether or not the financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Our report is unmodified, meaning there are no modifications to it. So everything is follows generally accepted accounting principles. That's what you want. After that, there's a section called management discussion and analysis. That's a little bit more than around 10 pages, in which it presents some financial summaries associated with extracts from the rest of the financial report. The main content of the report, there's a series and set of fund financial statements. When we come in there and do the audit, what we do is we ask for an awful lot of information, but we start with the trial balances and all of the funds that you have there, your governmental funds, your general fund, capital projects funds, your TIF districts, all of your other non-major funds, and then the business type funds, which would include your water, wastewater, and airport funds. And we do substantive testing of that and present that into financial statement format. There's also a series of what they call government-wide statements. They're similar to consolidations, in which they consolidate all the governmental funds into a separate column, and then all the business type or the utility information into another column, and they consolidate the information on there. After that, there's a series of notes to the financial statements, which for all of the major besides the significant accounting principles, all of the major significant financial statement accounts, cash, debt, plant, fund balance, the pension plans, there's separate disclosures regarding that. So that is essentially, the content of the 80 plus page document called the financial statement audit. there's a required audit communication to the village board. There's a standard communication that's there. That's one of the other documents that we've got, where we also put, the management letter comments on there. The ones that we had in there weren't any differences from the year before. We did indicate that there were some audit adjustments that we needed to have. Primarily, the big ones were associated with allocating plant costs and capitalizing plant items on there. And then the other comments in regarding to internal control was, you do have pretty good segregation of duties on there, but given the size of the village that you have, you can't get clear and total separation from, and there's overlaps between billing and collecting and some other areas that are there. The last point was there's a new standard coming out next year called on subscription-based IT agreements. And this past year, there was the lease standard, which was brand new. We had to incorporate that within the audit report. Next year, they're also going to have subscription-based IT standards, which will be put in there. So, key financial results: the general fund balance decreased by $57,000, but it was basically up before there was a transfer of some of the excess funds over into the capital projects fund, and then a $60,000 transfer over into the CDA. Your fund balance in the general fund is very strong. The unassigned fund balance is 43% of the expenditures, which is very good. That's anything over 30% is very healthy. So bottom line is your you have an adequate fund balance. During the year, the TIF3 was terminated, and we did a closeout associated with that. Just from the utility operations, the water utility had an operating income of $288,000. A little bit of a decrease in cash flow, mainly because the capital expenditures were up during the year. I do understand. I think you're looking at getting going through the process of getting a water rate application there. The sewer utility had operating income of $87,000, and the cash flow increased by $256,000. So you got a healthy amount of cash in with the sewer utility. Your general obligation debt limit is a function of your tax base. So as your tax base increases, your GO debt limit increases. But that's all relative to the amount of debt you had, and the debt you have that counts towards the limit was, about $9,630,000 at the end of the year. So you've got, roughly $15 million in debt capacity. So those were the key financial results or takeaways that I wanted to communicate with you. The rest of the summary that we have there, it's got some charts and graphs that you may find useful, but I always ask when I give presentations, do I want the 5-minute version, the 20-minute version, or the hour version? And I was told to keep it brief, so that was my 5-minute overview.
Kevin, thank you. Any questions for Kevin before I ask some 2 accounting questions?
Well, Matt, I did knock yourself out. One thing I wanted to ask, though, about the capital outlay or on the government expenditures, and if you could ask about that, because no, you're more astute at that than I am. I just wanted to know why the peak in 2021.
Didn't we do a fund transfer?
Are you referring to the decrease in the general fund? Let me look at the.
Page 6.
Okay. Kevin, he's referring to this graph right here.
Oh, wasn't that in 2021, wasn't it a big chunk of that, the Village Square project in 21?
We
There
still,
was some,
with that project happened, oh yeah, in 2021, yes, I'm sorry, that is correct.
yeah.
And
That
the
was
dam too.
Yeah,
And we're still waiting for remuneration on that, aren't we?
You're talking about the grant receipts?
Yeah.
We were, at the end of 2022, the grant funds for the dam had not been received. Those were received in March of this year. But in 2022, we did receive the multimodal grant of $750,000 for the Village Square.
So Kevin, you touched on it in your letter and in your presentation, so we didn't have any issues around implementing GASB 87?
correct.
Okay, and then you mentioned GASB 96. I sat through a presentation of that, and I was told that it was only about what was material. So I don't know if we have any software subscriptions that are material to us, but we probably might want to talk about that offline.
Yeah, we're going through the implementation process on that with beginning that with a lot of our 630 ones too, and essentially it's even with the GASB 87, the lease standard there, that's materiality does matter on that. Most of our communities have had some leases that were implemented. As far as the subscription-based IT agreements, it depends on the length and the dollar amount of any of the subscriptions that you have. And what we're finding is a number of the places have year-to-year ones, and if it's a year-to-year one, generally it's not needed to be, it's not followed under 96. So, but it depends.
Okay.
I'm not. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think after you get through your 6:30 year end, if maybe you could give our staff a quick overview based on what you've learned, just so we're ready.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
With regard to that, are we talking about them being material if they extend past a year at a time? I mean, like, if you have a 3-year agreement with, say, Microsoft or somebody, to maintain your pricing at a certain level?
Yeah, well, it's length of time, so if it's truly long-term, greater than 12 months, but then also if it is of a significant dollar amount, so if you had that, but it was $15,000, $5,000 each, that's not material. So, but if it's the only one I could think of would be a Microsoft agreement that we have. I can't think of anything else that we have that's multi-year and that dollar amount. So, do we need a motion to accept this, or? I mean, it's the draft. We'll get the final report, right? Okay. All right, any other questions for Kevin? All right. Thank you. Hope you feel
Thank you.
better. Thanks for joining.
Yep. I appreciate it. So thanks. Bye.
Just, this is kind of minor, but it's a draft.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
It's a draft of a draft, that is correct. Okay.
Okay.
It'd be funny.
Item 4 is Chamber Cycling Classic follow-up items, and I know this is a time-sensitive item. Unfortunately, Vanessa is quite ill this evening, so she is not here with us. So I guess, do you want to go over? They have a meeting tomorrow that is scheduled, correct?
They have their public information meeting scheduled at the brewery on May 3rd. I don't know if her illness is going to impact that meeting or not. I just found out, just before the meeting that she was not going to be able to attend. So I had communicated with Vanessa that the board could discuss it, and if, they had concerns, I could relay those to her. You could also delay a review until the 18th. She had said they could postpone it to the 18th. But I think, really it's looking at the materials and determining whether the village board deems them acceptable from what you guys were asking for.
excuse me, what time on Wednesday is the meeting at the brewery?
Yes, that's correct. It's at 6 PM. So it says right in this letter, they plan to hold the informational session on Wednesday, May 3rd at 6 PM at the East Tri Brewery.
Well, I think we ought to take this up in our next meeting, but if they are still going to proceed, Eileen and I have a meeting Wednesday evening at that same time, so I'm not able to then go down to the brewery. Would any of you care to volunteer to address our questions or concerns, and listen to any citizens who may still have concerns? Okay. All right, let the record show that Mr. Smalley raised his hand and said he would go.
Well, question about that, though, is should we as a body expound on the questions that we have to Jason so that we're all on the same page as far as what's going to be talked about?
That was going to be my next question, is what here within the packet does anybody have questions about, or that you were wanting to pose to Vanessa this evening?
I think the big thing is the contingencies for the permits, right? That and we talked about the new map. I think that was a big thing because people wanted to know exactly where things were going to go and designated parking. The items that were at the bottom of page 191 in our packet. Yeah.
Well, it looked like the map was updated with the locations for parking and then ADA. The only thing that I didn't see was additional restrooms, but
Yeah.
I don't know that, do you really need additional restrooms?
I think they are on the map, actually. So I have the map up on the screen here. And if you look at the registration, they show restrooms. It's hard to see my cursor, but there's the symbol right above registration, and then there's a symbol below the start finish.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm assuming the registration,
Are they going to have an ADA qualified porta-john? Because they have an ADA parking lot there for the hand cyclists. And that was just a thought I had, because the map was not really, I don't know, I looked around, I see the one by registration. We do have also the facilities in the pavilion itself on the square. But I
Oh,
do
she's got that labeled.
All right, and I do remember, though, that the people at the Global Glass said that they had people coming in to use the restrooms. So I want to make sure that they just say, well, here, one's enough.
Yeah, but the square ADA, correct? Or not?
They are not. In the gazebo? No.
So maybe pass that question along. I have not received any communication from any citizens or businesses since our last meeting. Is anybody else? Okay.
Are they, and said they're going to address the amount of noise at the finish line that they've had in the past? And also, they said they were going to address the car constantly using its horn on the whole circuit.
Yeah, but they addressed that at the meeting.
Well, I understand, but I thought it would be nice just to kind of reiterate at that, because this is going to be more or less the final meeting, correct, before the approval is given?
From my understanding, well, this is going to be from my understanding, this is going to be a citizen participation meeting.
I understand.
They can ask questions, they're going to go over everything, review everything. So if there are, questions about that, certainly I'll bring that back to the next board meeting.
Well, I understand. I guess what I would like to do, though, is I just wouldn't like to be somebody who said, well, you brought this up at this, when the time comes for us to approve this, I don't want to bring it up at that time, saying, well, why didn't you say something earlier? That's what I'm kind of reiterating what was brought up at the first meeting when the bike officials were here.
Sure,
So-
I can make sure we recap, what we discussed at the board meeting.
I would assume somebody from Toad will be at that meeting. And just, I guess, as a reminder, and anybody listening in, we've already approved the race. These are contingent upon these materials being received. It looks like they've put it together, and unfortunately, she's ill, so she can't be here to present it. But thank you, Jason, for going to the meeting on Wednesday. And we'll put this back on the agenda on the 18th. Is that the right? No. Yeah, 18th. And 15th. 15th. And then get an update from you. All right?
I just had one comment on that. So I know we had talked about having a contact person during the race. And I didn't see it in here, maybe I missed it, but having that contact person or a phone number that we can call or a citizen can call in case there's an issue. Because I think that was part of the complaints we had last year was, we have people riding on the sidewalks and, so as long as we have a contact for that.
Okay, anything
Ma'am?
else? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that on her application at the last meeting when we approved this, there were 4 original contingencies, and then there were the additional ones that were set by the board. Those first 4, not all have been met, but they aren't normally met until closer to the race because they're waiting for their insurance and like the okay from the county, and they usually come in very last minute on those things. So that is not unusual.
Thank you. Anything else on this item? All right. Moving on. Excuse me. Item 5, consideration of award of WWTP roofing bid. So you see Tom's. Tom is here. Tom's memo. Any questions for Jason or Tom?
Jason, they're gonna, it's a good company.
Tom?
Tom's memo. It says,
Tom
from
actually-
Tom Puss.
Tom actually spoke with all the references, so he's going to answer this better than I can.
The company that we're discussing right now, then, I just want to make sure they're pretty reputable,
Yeah.
okay. I'm just asking because the membrane stuff that they're going to put in has to be, well, I'm sure you're probably familiar with it, but you have to be very careful putting that stuff on. You have to prep the surface really pretty well before you put that down. Otherwise, you could have a malfunction later on.
Correct.
And just to,
So-
go ahead.
So to address the first question, they listed 5 references. All 5 of them got back to me and had glowing reviews about the company, the owners, and their quality of work. And then as far as the warranty goes, the membrane is Duralast, and Duralast actually comes out and does the inspection. It's not Badgerland that does it, so.
They come out and do the inspection if there's a problem or when the job is completed.
The pre-inspection and the post-inspection.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. In that case, I'm going to recommend that we award the bid for the wastewater treatment roofing project for $94,485 to Badgerland Roofing, contingent upon Attorney Pruitt's approval.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion?
Just for clarification as well, the insurance has not been addressed yet, although that's not unusual for this situation. So we're still working through that with them.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tom. I like seeing memos from our other staff, so good job. All right, item 6, consider approval of wastewater treatment plant masonry repairs. This memo's from Jason.
I'll take this one. So actually, during the exploration of the roofing project, we found that there's quite a bit of tuck pointing and some sealing of the roof, or I'm sorry, of the walls adjacent to the roofing that we're about to place. And we want to get this dealt with right away before we do the roofing, so we're not doing this project on the new roof. And I actually want to amend my recommendation here. So when I set out on this, we met with Mason, and he took a look at it, made some suggestions, and we had intended on just blocking in a couple of these glass block walls. It's a couple $1,000s cheaper, but as I thought about it over the weekend, I thought, what we're doing here is we're really creating a maintenance point. So I would like to amend my recommendation to redo this in glass block, which is another couple $1,000s. It would be a total of $12,180 to replace the glass block windows.
Jason, you going to do glass block or Lexan?
They're glass. They're 4-inch square glass.
And it's going to keep the amount of light in those rooms at a higher rate than it would be if you blocked it in, correct?
Yeah, and the light really wasn't the concern for us. We had some moisture issues, and we're addressing those with some flashings above the windows on the outside. So I don't think we'll have the moisture issues that we had this time. And now you got to remember, these windows are 40 years old. This building was built in '83, so.
Is that done by the same contractor?
Yes, it is. It's all within this quote for $12,180.
The roofing contractor.
No, this would be the mason. This is
Okay.
separate from the roofing contract.
So is this, Jason, based on normal wear and tear of the business or of the building?
Again,
or
yeah, a
any-
building that's 40 years old, it needs a little attention, a little maintenance. We did roofs in this building in '07 with the plant upgrade, but it's ready for some tuck pointing.
I'll make a motion to approve the masonry repairs for $12,100 for the wastewater treatment plant to Wisconsin Masonry.
$12,180.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to ordinances and resolutions. Item 1, set sale parameters, resolution for bond issuance presentation of pre-sale report by Ehlers. Welcome back.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. John Cameron with Ehlers. And what I'm going to do is walk through the highlights of the presale report for the issuance of not to exceed $1,725,000 of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2023A. Really, the next 3 points on your agenda all have to deal with approving the cause of the bonds. So by approving these resolutions, you're directing us at Ehlers to move forward with causing the sale of the bonds to occur, which we plan to do in late June of this year. So with bonds, and bonds are anything in terms of repayment over 10 years in length, up to 20 years maximum under state statutes. In this case, you're looking at repaying these over a 16-year period of time. So when you authorize the sale of the bonds to occur, you do so first by purpose. So you have the water purpose, you have the street purpose, and then you're authorizing in total. And in this case, you're also establishing what's called a parameters resolution. And really, what a parameters resolution does is it allows the sale of the bonds to occur on a non-village board meeting night or meeting day. We take bids during the day. In this case, the sale of the bonds was originally, it would fall, your meeting date in June would fall on Juneteenth day, which in that case, the markets are closed. We're not able to hold the bond sale that day, so a parameters resolution is needed in this case. In terms of the highlights of the presale report, just working off of the executive summary, The purpose of the bonds is twofold, really. It's for your 2024 street projects as well as 2023 and 2024 water projects. The street projects would be paid via ad valorem property tax revenue, and the water projects would be repaid annually through water utility rates. In terms of the authority, these would fall under Statute 6704, which is general obligation bonds. Municipalities in the state of Wisconsin have a limited amount of general obligation bonding authority, and that is no more than 5% of your total equalized value. After the issuance of these bonds, the village will be at approximately $10.9 million of outstanding general obligation debt, which is at 45% of your limit. Your remaining borrowing capacity would be approximately $13.4 million. So really in a good position in terms of total remaining capacity after the sale of these bonds. As I had mentioned earlier, the term of the debt would be for 16 years. Principal would start on May 1st, 2024, run out through 2039. Interest would be payable every 6 months, so May and November, starting in 2024. We will be looking for a prepayment ability for these bonds, which would be at the discretion of the village, really on or after May 1st, 2031. So on or after that date, you could either prepay the debt if you wanted to. You could keep the bonds outstanding until 2039, or if interest rates fall between now, the time of the sale, and the call date or any date thereafter, you could refinance the debt for savings, interest rate savings. In terms of the process, one of the things to highlight is as part of going through the bond sale itself, the next kind of big step will be preparing the preliminary official statement. There's a lot of information that gets gathered, and that really is the primary offering document for the sale of the bonds. It's what prospective underwriters will be reviewing and relying upon as they decide to bid, and at what price they're going to bid at, and what interest rate. Just kind of kudos and thank you to staff up front, because again, there is a lot of information that we do request to put that official statement together. We'll also be going through a rating process with Moody's. Right now, the village has an A1 rating, and as part of the bond sale process, probably the early to mid part of June, we'll be conducting a rating call with representatives from Moody's. In terms of the basis of recommendation, what we're recommending here is basis of recommendation and method of sale is a competitive bond sale. That's really kind of been past practice of the village. These are for standard municipal projects. There's really not a reason to negotiate or to find an underwriter and negotiate with that specific underwriter. This lends itself very well to a competitive bond sale, which we're hoping to get lots of bidders on come the end of June. Jumping ahead in the pre-sale report, just to other service providers as part of the process. In addition to us serving as the village's municipal advisor, Quarles and Brady is the village's bond counsel. They're the ones who prepared the resolutions that you actually have for action tonight. And then on the day of sale, they'll have a sale day resolution to adopt, actually approving and awarding the sale of the bonds. You have a paying agent on the debt, which assists in making those debt service payments, and that is Bond Trust Services. And then, as I talked about earlier, Moody's is the rating agency. In terms of the schedule, we're looking to have the rating call really kind of around the week of June 12th, possibly earlier, or a little bit later. The distribution of the official statement will be going out June 19th, and then we will be actually looking to conduct the bond sale on June 27th. One item, I'm sorry, Eileen, just to make you back up a page or two to page 3, that I also wanted to mention in terms of the parameters. So in the resolution itself, as I said, a parameters resolution really allows us at Ellers to conduct the sale of the bonds on an off village board meeting date. And as long as the parameters are met, it allows the bonds to be executed and signed off on, either by the village president or village administrator. So in this case, we've got a not to exceed of $1,725,000, and that does include some contingency, knowing that the projects have yet to be bid. So it's possible that between now and the day of sale, we'll look to downsize the issue if the bids come in and we don't need all of the contingency that is built into the sizing. It's also possible that if the bids come in above what is estimated, that between now and the date of sale, there could be a revision that would be before this village board to increase the not to exceed on the parameter sale.
How often does that happen? I'm sorry, how often does that happen when it actually comes in over?
So I think it's really more a question in terms of the bidding itself and the project, and I'm probably not the best person to talk about where your bids are. In terms of coming in over on the day of sale, not to exceed, it does not. That's what you're establishing. You're saying it's not to exceed this dollar amount. But in terms of the bidding, I don't know if somebody else wants to.
Can you, I'm sorry, Eileen, can you scroll back to the timeline? And Jason, can you speak to what's the timeline for the project?
So the bid opening is actually next week for Highway 20. So we should know sometime in June, at the latest, obviously, what our portion of that is. Probably a few weeks from now.
I know when we did estimate for the borrowing purposes, we had talked to Brian with Ehlers, and we discussed putting quite a bit of contingency in what we had as estimates for project amounts. So we're very hopeful that it would be a downsize rather than an upsize.
Yep. Yeah, right now you've got, I think, 25% contingency on the project estimate. So hopefully that is indeed the case. And that's, gives us plenty of time before the official statement kind of hits the street for prospective underwriters to review it to potentially downsize. So you're in really good shape in terms of your timeline. The other thing from a parameters resolution standpoint is it establishes kind of a minimum price and a maximum price. On the day of sale, the underwriters really are bidding on two things. They're bidding on the total price of the bonds, which includes their underwriter's discount, which is their fee for purchasing the debt and then turning around and selling it on the secondary market. And then they're actually bidding on that interest rate by maturity. And the price and the overall interest rate for each maturity are evaluated on, when the bids are due to determine who the winning underwriter is. So as long as, again, we're not going below a minimum price or above a maximum price, the sale can move forward, as well as a not to exceed on the true interest cost of the debt, which is what the bonds are evaluated on, and that true interest cost is not to exceed 6%. Interest rates are lower than that right now, so it gives us a little bit, again, of cushion if there would be some change in the market between now and the time when the sale would occur. In terms of just the highlights of the different worksheets that are included in the sale day report, the first table just shows the estimated sizing at this point, which would include the 25% contingency. So again, between now and the time the official statement is published and we're looking to move forward with the sale of the bonds, those numbers will be fine-tuned, as well as the total estimated issuance expense. And again, on the day of sale, most likely this will hopefully come down a little bit, but at the very least not exceed the $1,725,000, depending on where that underwriter's discount comes in. The estimated principal and interest payments on the debt are shown on the next page and broken out between the streets or the levy portion and the portion that is carried through the water utility. The portion that's carried through the water utility is really kind of structured around some of the existing debt within the utility, so that the overall debt service payments are very stable within the water utility. The next page, Table 3, shows the estimated, the current principal and interest payments for existing debt and associated levy and tax rate, and then the estimated principal and interest payments for the debt that you would be authorizing, the abatement source in terms of what's being covered through the water utility, and then the associated and total levy and tax rate for debt. What's shown here is between 2023 and 2024, the total levy for debt service would increase by approximately $75,000 as it pertains to this sale. Again, that'll be tightened up on the day of sale. The current tax rate for debt on an equalized value basis is 49 cents per thousand. It's anticipated that that would go up from 49 cents to 63 cents per thousand. And for a property valued at $250,000, currently that 49-cent tax rate equates to $122 of your property tax bill going to pay debt. That's anticipated to increase from $122 to $157, or about just under $31 increase.
Across how much time?
The 16 years. Thank you. Yep. So I think that's kind of the main highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions on the presale report.
Any questions for John? All right, so we have 3 resolutions here, so 3 motions.
Sure, I'll move to approve Resolution 2023-08, authorizing $1.3 million in general obligation bonds for the water system projects.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead.
Okay, in that case, I'll move to approve Resolution 2023-09 for the initial resolution authorizing $425,000 in general obligation bonds for street improvement projects.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then last resolution.
I'll just make, I'll move to approve Resolution 2023-10, authorizing the issuance and establishment parameters for the sale of not to exceed $1.725 million general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2023A.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we need to approve the scope of engagement here with Quarles? Okay, yeah. I need a motion for the scope of engagement with Quarles.
I'll move to approve the scope of engagement for the bond sale with Quarles.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you very much. You too. Take some food with you, please. Have a cupcake. All right, item 2, Resolution 2023-06, appointing acting village president. As I was the previous acting village president for when Scott was not available, I twisted John's arm and asked him to be the same. So that's what this resolution is.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-06.
And I will second it. All right, any discussion?
Yeah, I don't think we could have made a better choice.
Okay, thank you.
Lori's not.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And last item, 2023, Resolution 2023-07, an amendment to Comprehensive Outdoor Recreational Plan Amendment. Amendment to an amendment. So you see the memo here from Eileen about what this is from the Plan Commission, and then Parks and Rec.
So we've got the resolution 2022-07.
2023.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, there is a
Yeah.
typo at the top.
Yes,
That's
there
right.
was a typo. That is 2023-07. The signature copy will be corrected.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, awesome. Then I'll move to approve resolution 2023-07.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then under reports, annual watershed report. Again, we have Tom here. Should anyone have any questions about this report with lovely pictures on the cover page?
Are the highs and lows, I noticed there's a few big, pretty highs there. Are those, is that normal?
Are you talking about phosphorus concentrations or what? Okay. What the highs and
Yeah,
Highs and lows
I'm
of
just,
what?
I'm looking at all the graphs that we've got on here, like for the effluent phosphorus concentrations, and some of the chemical addition rates. And I was just curious, I mean, I know things happen, but I'm just wondering if that's kind of an ongoing thing every year, or is it?
So I'm going to take this opportunity to share a fun fact. I recently found out Forty Renucci has never had a tour of the wastewater treatment plant.
Get out of
So
here.
we're going to
I've
make
been
sure
in
Tom
there.
gives them that.
No, let me qualify that, though. I have not had a tour of the new one. Is Tom Rossmiller took me through the old one.
We'll let Tom answer your question now.
What page are you referring to?
Well, I think he's on page 6 for the phosphorus.
6 and 7, I'm looking at some of the points.
So the peaks and valleys of the phosphorus?
Yeah, I'm looking, there's a few high points and across there that I was just wondering if that's normal or that's par for the course.
To have the phosphorus peak like that, it's pretty normal. In the summer, we usually run with a higher phosphorus, so if you look at the figure 5-3, or I'm sorry, 3-5, you'll see that trend up in our warmest months. It's really high. There's some outliers here. It's probably February, and that is attributed to a higher flow. So the total phosphorus is a mass balance. So with more flow, it equals more pounds.
Thank you.
Heavy rains will do it.
Yes.
Anything else? Okay. I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Have a good evening. Before everybody leaves, these are cupcakes, I guess homemade, I think they're homemade, from the food pantry. Thanking us for and if you saw in Lori's email earlier today, thanking us for the favorable change in not charging them rent for their use of the space at the DPW garage. So help yourselves, please. There's plenty there, so please take some home with you.